The Chaikin oscillator is a momentum indicator derived from the accumulation distribution line. It's made up of the difference between the 3 and 10 period EMA of the accumulation distribution line. If you are interested, you can research further details on the indicator's calculations. Similar to other lessons on chart indicators and tools, the main focus here will be on examining real chart examples to see application in real-world scenarios. We'll see various uses of the Chaikin oscillator, along with preferred conditions for its application in cases where it fails and/or has limitations, such as when price gaps down with a green candle, but the indicator's values rise. A wide range of real chart examples will be covered from various time ranges. So no matter when you watch this or which particular charts you choose to apply the Chaikin oscillator on, information presented in this lesson can be of use to you. The Chaikin oscillator can help identify areas where a trend can begin to get exhausted, leading to flatter price movement and potential reversals. This can be done by marking more extreme values similar to support and resistance. Right now, there's a noticeable divergence between price, which has mostly remained flat and unchanged in the short term, and the Chaikin oscillator, which has risen sharply but has begun to slow down upon reaching more extreme values. That means bullish sentiment and movement cannot be sustained too much higher. The end result is no reversal back to an uptrend. Later, more progress is made for an upward move. However, once the Chaikin oscillator returns back towards those more extreme high positive values, there's an indication of uptrend exhaustion, which doesn't mean there will be a guaranteed downward reversal, but at the very least, a slowdown to rising price. Conversely, reaching extreme low levels on the negative side of the oscillator indicates exhaustion for any downward movement progressing lower, which naturally leads to more neutral to even bullish movement. Speaking of which, there is a potential bullish reversal range forming. Price is making good progress to close decisively over the upper boundary around 160. But this is likely to be short-lived according to the Chaikin oscillator since those higher values have recently been reached. As usual, progress for the uptrend begins to stall, and in this case eventually leads to a full reversal. But despite periodic selling, price doesn't go much lower, since each time there's a drop towards 130 bearish movements quickly get exhausted as the indicator reaches those more extreme lower values. Now here's a normal gap down that immediately gets filled, after which there's the natural tendency for the rise of price to stop. However, there is still potential to go higher since the Chaikin oscillator continues to rise and hasn't reached those extreme high values yet. When it does, there's a more decisive halt to the uptrend beyond a normal gap down fill. And although there's been a decisive shift towards more neutral to bearish movement, those more extreme lower values have been reached on the oscillator, indicating exhaustion of the initial bearish movement, leading to a natural delay, but not a guaranteed prevention of a downward reversal. For a more certain reversal to recover losses from this current downtrend, it would be preferable to have price decisively go over the roughly 260 to 280 range, while at the same time the Chaikin oscillator remains well above zero. These two conditions are almost met on several occasions, though now it's the opposite attention is focused on the potential break of this lower boundary, when it would be preferable to also have the Chaikin oscillator remain well below zero. These conditions are present and sustained, leading to a successful continuation of the established downtrend. And similar to the beginning of this example, a bullish reversal is more decisive if Chaikin oscillator values can remain well above zero, while at the same time price decisively closes over the 200 to 220 area. Since these conditions don't immediately appear returning back up into the 200s, remains delayed for quite some time. What we now have is the beginning of the end to a downward retracement in this new established uptrend. A bullish continuation in this case sees a decisive surge back over the recent highs around 190, while at the same time Chaikin oscillator values remain well above zero. There's a gap up with a green candle, so there's no discrepancy between price going up and the indicator moving up. Naturally, there's the tendency for the gap up to get filled, but Chaikin oscillator values can't significantly drive below zero, just as there's little to no progress with price dropping to fill in the gap up. Instead, quite the opposite, price remains firmly out of the gap, while Chaikin oscillator values return steeply back over zero. Here's another gap up, but there's a minor discrepancy since it's a red gap up candle. So price rises significantly, but the indicator drops slightly. In this case, it's not much of a problem since the candle body is quite small and it has little to no impact in the broader context. In contrast, large amounts of selling could have a major impact soon, provided price starts closing into the gap and Chaikin oscillator values remain well below zero. Since the chart quickly steers away from these conditions, there is another bullish continuation that averts filling in another gap up immediately. Beginning here with a textbook example of a large downtrend constantly sustained as values of the Chaikin oscillator consistently remain close to or well below zero. More recently, there's been a distinct divergence, price is still bearish, but moving much flatter, while there's been a sharp increase of the Chaikin oscillator straight back up to zero. With the surge of buyers right now, an uptrend is well underway, confirmed by the Chaikin oscillator over zero, for even greater indication of strength behind this quick climb. Inevitably, selling will return for at least a minor retracement, though overall the uptrend and the recent strength of it is still well intact, as Chaikin oscillator values hold firmly well above zero, as price still continues to close higher. In fact, maybe the Chaikin oscillator reached values that were too high some time ago. A noticeable divergence here: values on the oscillator had peaked and remained flat, with a slight decline prior to this current downtrend, while at the same time price was still on a relatively steep incline. This sustained divergence was somewhat of a precursor before the initially steep drop. The recent peak of the indicator is by no coincidence near these historic highs, that when reached often led to a weakening of prior bearish movements and pauses or even reversals of uptrends. As would be expected, the opposite happens when reaching historic low levels for the Chaikin oscillator. It's an indication of exhaustion for the downtrend, which can pause the drop, or point to the potential for a bullish reversal, which is actually the case right now. Success: the Chaikin oscillator goes well above zero on a steep incline just as price begins to go over the upper boundary of this reversal range. Then the indicator reaches historic high values, returning the chart back to a tendency towards more neutral to bearish price movement. Now, from a bearish perspective, it would be preferable for Chaikin oscillator values to steeply drop under zero. This does take place, but there is no decisive downtrend yet due to bullish volatility briefly spiking up price. This also led to an exhaustion on the sell side, as indicated by the oscillator dropping towards historic low values, resulting in not much progress lower following a moderate retracement. To further delay a quick return back to low prices, Chaikin oscillator values have returned firmly back over zero as price returns back to previous highs, where there is potential for breakthrough to the 20 range and beyond. Yet at the same time, a bullish perspective would have to watch out for exhaustion to the uptrend when values begin into near historic highs on the Chaikin oscillator, which in turn can open up the possibility for continued neutral to bearish activity, similar to what has been seen over the past few weeks. For more on indicators as well as Fibonacci methods, follow Ascencore. Thanks for watching and have a nice day.